Hello and happy belated New Year, disc golfers. Before we get started with this awesome episode, I want to first and foremost thank those of you who love the show enough to start donating via the links provided on our website and in the show notes. As a reminder, when we reach 50 people donating to the Zen Disc Golf Podcast cause, we will begin entering all those donating to win a $20 gift card from Infinite Discs every month. So it's pretty cool. So if you are just tuning in and wondering where this money goes, it goes to keeping the show alive. As more listeners join in from around the world, the podcast becomes pricier on our end. So your donations go to paying the bills to keep the podcast and the website going, as well as all the giveaways we love to do, and just helping the show become more regular. And we're only asking for $1 a month, just $1. What can you get for $1? Or if you're feeling really generous, up to $3, but no more than that. Each dollar gives you one entry to win that monthly gift card to Infinite once we reach that magic number 50. For more information about this, please check out the show notes or zendiscgolf.com. And now it's time for your moment of Zen. When you make a bad shot, don't follow it with a bad decision. Zig Ziglar. Welcome to number 18! Hello, disc golfers, and welcome to episode number 18 of the Zen Disc Golf Podcast, the first Zen Disc Golf Podcast of 2016. I am Patrick McCormick, aka Zen Disc Golf, the author of Zen and the Art of Disc Golf, and if I should shed a little bit of humility for my own introduction, also known as the Obi-Wan Kenobi of the Zen Disc Golf Galaxy. We are also joined by the brash smuggler captain with a heart of gold. He's got attitude, charisma, and enough one-liners to cause ladies to swoon all over the galaxy. The Han Solo of the Zen Disc Golf Podcast, Zach Englehart.
I bet. How you doing?
Hey, man. Also,
I'm flattered.
Also joining us is one of the greatest of all disc golf Jedis, the eloquent speaker of wisdom for the disc golf galaxy, our very own Yoda. That is Tim Stewart of Mind Body Disc. How are you, Tim?
I'm doing pretty good, guys. How you guys doing?
Good. And last but not least, our courageous orphaned farm boy, always out for adventure and owning a mystic connection to the Force. That is the Luke Skywalker of the Zen Disc Golf Galaxy, Chris Bowden of DG Puttheads.
Hello there, and thank you for the wonderful introduction. I was half expecting you to compare me to an Ewok, so I'm very pleased.
Notice nobody got Jar Jar.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Today, gentlemen, we also have a very special guest, Joshua Keith, who is the founder of Therapy Disc Golf, and is going to be here to discuss a program that uses disc golf as therapy to help young people through tough times. So this is the most people we've ever had on a podcast, and prior to starting recording, we've had a little bit of connectivity problems, so hopefully that won't go with us throughout the pod. But if we do, we'll just reset, no big deal. But with this show, episode 18, new show, new year, new segments we're adding to the show. And one of the things I'd like to add to the show, as I was discussing with everybody before, is a first segment that I'd like to do, and I'm calling it right now just loosely Strategies for Success. And this is going to be my little monologue at the beginning of the episode. If you guys come up with a better name for that, maybe more disc golf related or something, I'd be open to change it. But right now I'm calling it Strategies for Success. Okay, everyone, January is a time for new beginnings, and many people begin this month with the dreaded New Year's resolution. And I say dreaded because only 8% of people actually keep their resolutions. In fact, I'm willing to bet that many people out there have already abandoned their resolution by the time this show airs, which will be about halfway through the month. So what is a resolution? A resolution is a firm decision to take action in solving a problem or to create a successful outcome in some way, shape, or form in their lives. About 45% of the American population makes resolutions in which they have identified something they'd like to change in themselves, or as I mentioned, only about 8% are actually successful in making that change. And that's because change is difficult. We often abandon our NYRs for one or more of the following reasons. Our heart just isn't in it. Our goal was too vague. Maybe it was too lofty, or maybe we gave ourselves too much or not enough time to achieve it. So there's a guy named George T. Doran, I believe that's how you pronounce his name, who developed a system of goal that helps you achieve goals that are and tailor them for success. And you may have heard of this strategy before, but this is just kind of a reminder as a start in the new year. Next time you set a goal for yourself, whether it's losing weight or helping others, improving your drives or putting, use the acronym S.M.A.R.T. So SMART stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-related. If you tailor your goals to meet these criteria, the likelihood of your success skyrockets. So again, that's your goal should be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-related. So let's use putting, for example. And the common way we might decide to set a goal is to say, this year I'd like to get better at putting. Well, that's not really a SMART goal. It's a little too vague, not really measurable, not time sensitive, etc. So if we were to use the SMART acronym to say we'd like to get better at putting, we might say it something like this. I will, and I say I will because I like active language like this. I will make 90% of my 25-foot putts, this is likely attainable, within 6 months. Now, let's add an action to this goal by practicing 3 times a week using XYZ technique. Now, write it down, place it where you can see it. This is just another tool for success to throw in your bag. Does anybody have any experience with SMART goals?
It's actually funny that you just brought that up. A couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, I went through a self-actualization process, and that's one of their big things was that exact acronym, SMART.
Well, that's awesome. That's a good transition.
Yeah, it really does. It really does apply to everything because the biggest things for me to remember is always, specific and measurable. Because otherwise, if you can get lofty goals and then you have no way to track your progress.
Absolutely. So, Josh, tell us a little bit about Therapy Disc Golf, your program to help. Is it just for youth or is it for, I guess, give us a little bit of your background and then talk about how you've come to where you are today and where your company's going.
Well, if I can do this in a shotgun way, I grew up in North Texas in a small town that's now a bigger city. But it did have a disc golf course, and from probably 13 on, my friends and I would just wander down there and throw frisbees around. We didn't have any idea what it's grown to be now. But fast forward, 10 years through some difficult decisions and bad associations, I ended up in rehab a couple of times, and then later in the penitentiary. And it was no fault of anyone's but my own, as far as I could tell. The state of Texas put me through every program they could see, and my school expelled me and dealt with me the only way they knew how. And luckily, after getting out of prison, was able to make a life for myself with some supportive family and friends, which is a really important part. And then I reconnected with disc golf, and it just kind of started becoming a laboratory for the decisions I needed to make in the outside world, because a lot of times we don't have time to practice, leading in for a job interview or having a difficult conversation with your wife or anything like that. So, the solitude of the disc golf course for me created a place where I could kind of do those push-ups mentally and physically and spiritually.
Absolutely.
And then that just, after a long time of, working in a completely different industry, always wanted to give back somehow. And a long time ago wanted to be a coach, but now because of my background, I'm not able to work with kids, obviously, at a state level or anything like that. So
to
circumvent that process, just developing this curriculum for it. Right now, it's gearing towards young people, but it can be used for any symptom. And we're just happen to be working with a police department, district attorney in North Texas, to try and institute this as a pilot program in lieu of probation, or a true second chance opportunity that leaves these young people with not just a certificate of completion for probation, but actually some tools and some skills that they can bring with them into their life, and they will protract out into success, hopefully in years to come.
Awesome. That's cool how you've turned problem into an opportunity and are using that to not only help yourself but help others. So tell us a little bit more about disc therapy. You sent me a message showing me the front 9, as it were. Can you go over some of those with me? Is the front 9 and the back 9 how you have it? How you have this program laid out?
Absolutely. The way it's laid out is basically a course for your mind or your body or whatever you need help with. And if we're all honest, self-help books and self-actualization books are bestsellers, and people order them under, cloak of night, and read them in their car at lunch. And, people a lot of times are ashamed to work on things. So, it starts with discomfort. The 9 maxims that make up the front 9 all start with the word disc appropriately, hopefully easy to remember.
Yeah, these are brilliant. I love them.
But one is discomfort. And this could be, for young people, you got arrested, or if you're a diabetic and you can't stop eating sweets, then whatever that is, you bring your discomfort to the disc golf course or to the front 9, and that's the first one. And then from there you have a discontinue, which whatever is causing you that discomfort, just immediately stop it. It seems like common sense, but it's difficult to do for a lot of people. And so some people will get hung up here. So for something that's simple, it may take a long time, but this is also self-paced, and you don't have to share this with anyone if you don't want to. And so after discontinue, then you have discuss, which is essentially you get to tell your side of the story, using as much justification as you need to. If you're going to participate in this with another person, and there's someone in a supervisory role, I would urge them not to interrupt during this process. If you want to lie to yourself, if you want to justify, then this is where you get to do that.
Okay.
And then, so from there, you move into discern. And that's where, in a process of kind of just working out the logistics of whatever happened, whether it's, okay, I'm blaming the fact that I'm eating too many cookies on that I don't make enough money, I can't go to Whole Foods and buy healthy stuff, when really I could just substitute cookie behavior for taking a walk to the mailbox. So the discernment is finding your part in it, more or less.
Okay.
And then that goes kind of deeper, and from discern you go to disclose. And this is a really important process, and there's really no way to tell if it's done or not, because I wouldn't say that it's required to be shared with anyone. But this is where you're just honest with yourself about whatever the overarching negative self-talk that gets in the way of whatever goal you're trying to accomplish, that you don't really want to look at, but that's probably banging you over the head every single day. That's what we kind of ask you to look at in that. And if you need to write it down, and if it needs to be a mantra, if you need to share it with somebody, great. Some people don't want that onus on them. So if you don't want to share it, don't. Just really wholeheartedly and, take it in. So from disclose is important, because then I think you're ready, for something new. At that point. So, so after you get to disclose, then obviously you move into what would be the outside portion, and then you go, so this would be discourse. And this is kind of where we introduce the attitude that therapy disc golf wants to institute, just a positive mentality. It's so easy to let negativity and anger creep in during your round, and we all know how that can turn a day terrible. If you want to continue to enjoy anything, especially disc golf, then I had to figure out a way for it to not become like everything else in my life, where work gets on my nerves, or family can get on my nerves. I had to have a sanctuary. So out of that, that's kind of the attitude that comes from discourse. And then, so after discourse, then you have disconnect. And that's where you basically go over how to pare away all of your distractions and eliminate negative influences if possible in your life, and not disconnect from an escapist mentality, but disconnect from a focus mentality. Almost enable yourself to command to go into the zone, whatever you need to do, whether it's make a 25-foot putt, to win the AMs, or, just to deliver a good sales pitch for your first time out. Whatever that is that gets you to disconnect. And then after that, disconnection, then is discipline. Now you're actually ready to do some action. And this is where practice. And you're going to only be successful as, you practice, which is a perfect tie into, your success, lead in is that, it's exactly how much you want to put into it. So it's
Absolutely.
really, if you want to take this and you just want to go out and apply it to your putting, you can do that. Or if you want to, go out and apply it to your alcoholism, if on Sunday afternoons it's really difficult for you to not watch football, man, then grab this little manual, and put it in your back pocket and walk out and learn a lesson about yourself. And Sunday afternoon is a great place to do it because a lot of people aren't out on the course. So that discipline, and then the ninth one is discovery. And, you're going to discover something about yourself that you didn't know. And that makes up the front nine. And essentially the back nine is up to you. We beg you to design, 9 more holes or 9 action steps, as large or small as you see fit. There's no judgment in any of this. There's no, we don't subscribe to anything. So we just want people to better themselves, and basically just giving them a laboratory to do it.
Isn't it amazing how disc golf is connecting so many people like-minded in this way? And I've never heard of any other sport that people have played, even ones that have been played for, hundreds of years, where people come together and go, hey, there's something different about this. There's something that I'm experiencing, mental, behavioral, some kind of growth just by going out here and throwing this round piece of plastic. So it's incredible that it's changing lives like this, but it's also incredible that, hey, it's connected the 5 of us just this morning to sit around and talk about how disc golf changes lives in a good way.
So, Josh, why disc golf in particular rather than other sports or activities?
Well, for me, I was a baseball player growing up, and I played high school and attempted to play college baseball. That's when I got arrested, was when I was 18, from going senior year into hopefully going to start my baseball career. So I grew up an athlete. And, from there, obviously with prison, started playing ball golf, in the North Texas area. That's big, but it's also expensive, and it also ruins entire days. So I started just playing disc golf because at this point in Austin, where I'm at, it's growing, and I had a friend of mine that I worked with that just kind of encouraged me to get back out there and start playing again. And, as an adult, because it's been 10 years or so since I'd really played. As an adult, it's like reading another book or, a great novel and getting another lesson out of it. And then it was like a whole new addiction. I went from, a little bitty, 3-disc bag. And then a week later I had 25 discs, and I'm field testing them, and I'm practicing 2 hours a day.
That tends to happen.
For me, it was, I always had my most joy when I was younger, and I was playing baseball, and everything was new and possible. So I had that urge to get off school and go hit the batting cage until dark, until you got blisters, until you just couldn't swing, so it came from an urge to hone a craft that was my own again. Mm-hmm. And, disc golf, I was new enough at it to where I was unsuccessful, and I still am. I just now got my PDGA number, and I participated in my first PDGA event last weekend, and I achieved my goal of not finishing last overall.
That's wonderful.
So I got third.
Awesome.
I got third to last. So this week I'm going to Waco to play in another tournament, and we're going to spread the word about therapy. But my goals are small. I don't need to win. For me, I'm going to work on something else. My biggest downfall and what gets me in trouble today is anger, and it's a great thing to work on the disc golf course.
Yeah, because you're able to witness it. That's how I feel like when you're on the course. Did we lose somebody?
No, man. I had somebody sent me a email.
Oh,
the dreaded buzz.
Job making me offers on stuff I can't buy.
That's awesome. So what I was getting ready to say is that's another thing about disc golf is that it's almost, and I experience this a lot, especially when I'm out on the course playing alone. There's something that makes it easier to become a witness to your own emotions when you're on the course. That like when you're driving a car and you get in that situation of road rage, it seems like you fly right into it. But for some reason on the course, you're able to witness that as it's happening and redirect yourself.
So, Josh, earlier you had said something very important, that it was nobody's fault but your own. And what Patrick was just saying kind of leads me into the next question. And actually, I'd like to hear from all you guys. What in particular about disc golf will help people be accountable for their own actions and understand their own feelings and their own behaviors?
No, I'd have to say it's your peer group that you play with on a consistent basis that really helps, because if you have any sort of handle on how you're perceived by other people, you really strive to be a good person to your peers, because they help you grow. And if you're constantly a rage monster and upset and miserable, ultimately people don't want to be around you. So it helps you kind of reflect inwardly to say, my actions are negatively impacting my friends and my peers.
When you relate it back to disc golf, you get a bad lie. You can only blame yourself. You threw that disc. So it's just like life, But what are you going to do now? That's the question. What are you going to do now? You got to get yourself out of the situation, get yourself back in the fairway, and start trying to reach your goal of hitting the basket. There's nothing simpler than that.
Yeah, I would agree with you. That's being an individual sport. It ends up when you're in tough situations in life, it's all of a sudden very clear that life is an individual sport. I mean, you might have the peer group around you to support you.
Well, you have fans and they're cheering in the stands. Yeah, and you got haters too.
You, but it really, in the end, I think, when people really start to succeed in life and when people really start to succeed in disc golf, it's when they have that moment of realization that it's up to them. There's no excuses. There's nobody to blame. There's nobody to point fingers at. Whether the disc goes in the basket is up to you. And, if you miss the putt, you miss the putt. It's not the wind. It's not the disc. It's not anything else. You missed it. Mm-hmm. And when you can learn to accept that and learn to deal with that in a good way and use that instead of blame it, that's such a valuable life skill to transfer over.
And it's interesting that you bring that up, because I don't believe, and I'd like Josh to chime in on this as well. I don't believe that kind of responsibility and accountability and things like that is really being taught to the youth today as it used to be. As in that accountability for your own actions, to say, hey, that was me that missed the putt. That was, as Josh took accountability for his actions in his youth. It's not, everybody wants to blame something else. And it's real tough to do that when you step back on the disc golf course and you do realize it's not the discs, it's not the course, it's not the trees, it's not the wind. I threw that disc. What do you think, Josh, since you're going to be doing a lot of work with youth, how are you going to assist them in realizing that they have to take responsibility and accountability?
Well, that this is exactly, the transition that I want these kids to see. Like for me, when I'm out on the course, because in my life, what's gotten me in trouble is just going too fast and doing what's necessary for the now and living in too much of a survivalist mentality, which would translate to a really aggressive player on the disc golf course. Like for me, when I first started, I play with some guys that are open players, and they're awesome, so they go up and take some ridiculous line. But because I have faith in my athletic ability, because, at one point I was a blue chip athlete, well, I can physically make that move, so I can make my disc do that, and that got me into trouble throughout my life. So, learning to be, perform within yourself until you are ready to make that next step. I was trying to do things before I even knew how to do a run up, properly. So, it's taking things in the proper order. And there's a guy that I play with that's really improved my game. And he always says, just take your medicine. And that's the biggest thing that I learn every day. Cause you have these great designs, you like go out on a great morning, you start birdie, and then it's your favorite hole coming up, and it's wet, and flick, there you go, it hits a tree, and now you're looking at double bogey because you didn't throw it 30 feet. And I would try, because I made 2 birdies, to throw a thumber up out of the trees and land it in the basket, but that's not realistic. And so playing with him, he would say, hey, take your medicine. So then turn around, throw it 6 feet, regroup, develop an actual plan. Like you have to pivot. You can't, if your goal always maintains the same, but when you have something that alters your path, and in my case, it was prison and bad decisions, I just tried to keep forging ahead through the woods, and it caused me a lot of pain. If, I want to teach these kids that you can always choose to just pitch out of the woods and see your goal clearly again and develop a plan. You don't have to just go slogging through like a Sasquatch.
That's a really good point. That's a real good point. Josh, tell us a little bit about the clothing line that you're doing with disc therapy as well. Therapy disc golf.
Right now we're just going to be concentrating on just some pretty standard T-shirts, mainly just for people to be able to show support of what we're hoping ends up being a movement. It works on a 1-for-1 basis. So if you buy a T-shirt, you're going to provide a set of discs and free instruction to a young person, mainly in high risk. And for now, and at some point, it may turn into instruction for anyone. It's hopefully going to be something that I can literally put in a box and send to somebody as a curriculum, and go out and teach them how to develop it, and should be able to just spread like wildfire. So starting out, it's just the shirts, but in the future, I would like, because I'm a gearhead and I've been in sports for a long time, I would like to see some really nice, crafted quality, disc golf apparel that's dedicated to disc golf only. I don't ever want to make anything else. So, some good rip resistant stuff, eventually is the future, but it's all about giving back, Selfishly, I just want to wear stylish things 10 years from now. But, I'd like to be able to go from the disc golf course to dinner without having to change, or somebody give me change in, the lobby of the restaurant. So, but that's also, that doesn't have a completely divorced philosophy from therapy disc golf, because I've also always been a proponent of, you can only play as good as you look. And presentation is everything, especially young people today are so bullish about, they want to wear something that makes them unpresentable, and they're turning themselves into these unemployable, complaining entities that don't take accountability, for what they do. And in a world where today, if you walk into a job interview with your shirt tucked in and your shoulders back and your firm handshake, you probably got the job.
Yeah. Hey.
And that's all we need to teach kids. That's how I grew up, and that's how I learned. And luckily that's what my family instilled in me. And that's what I want to do, because everybody always attributes it back to not having a father figure, especially for young men. Well, if they can't have a father figure, they can at least have a collective big brother group in the disc golf community, because a lot of those guys are like me. And I know you guys have been around disc golf courses, and there's several people who have similar stories to mine. And we kind of hide out on the disc golf course because it's peaceful and because people don't judge you, and it's a positive environment. And I want to bring that to everybody.
Right on. Hey, we appreciate you doing that too. And we appreciate you being on the show and talking. I think you're going to find that you're going to be influencing other people to take some of the same path that you have as well. So that's awesome. Do you have a website yet?
I do. This is all pretty new.
Okay.
So bear with us because it's such a big undertaking. We're working on getting funding for the nonprofit side. I'm getting some promotional stuff out this weekend at a tournament on the marketing side, but we do have an Indiegogo page set up. If you go to Therapy Disc Gear or Therapy Disc Golf at Indiegogo or my Facebook, you can just search Therapy Disc Golf, or I did just build a web page last night at www.therapydiscgolf.com, and it should have a link to my Facebook page, and you can get the ultimate funnel is to the Indiegogo page for now. But I do have web development working for a full web platform, hopefully within the month.
Awesome.
Nice.
All right, and we'll make sure we add all that into the your links and everything into the show notes. Yes.
Okay. One more thing on the Indiegogo page. It is set up that for a $25 contribution, you will receive a custom stamp DX AVR with the Therapy Disc Golf logo, which is really neat. I encourage everybody to look at it. It's an adaptation off a Rorschach ink blot that looks like a disc golf basket. It's going to be really cool.
That sounds cool.
So you'll get a custom disc as a gift, and you will also provide the same disc and a mini for each of you for a young person to use in our pilot workshop that we're going to be doing in my hometown of McKinney, hopefully in March. So if you're in on the first run of the custom disc, we'll never do this founder stamp again. And so hopefully we'll turn it into a collector's item, but it's yours for $25, and you help us get started.
People love unique things like that, and they love it. I've learned that the disc golf community is a lot like the comic book community. We love like first run, special edition, limited quantity. So hopefully that does really well for you. I'm looking forward to checking that out. All right. Well, if you guys don't mind, let's move on to our next news segment. This should be really fun. I came up with an idea this past couple weeks that I would love to hear Tim and Zach debate on topics of my choosing for my own entertainment, really, but for everyone's entertainment out there too. Are you there, Zach?
Oh yeah. Go ahead, Greedo, shoot first.
Before I get started with this, part of the idea came from when I first met Zach. I don't remember how it came up, but I guarantee it came up on the disc golf course. He told me, "Give me anything, and I can argue it, even things I don't agree with." Like he said that was like he takes pride in this, and I said, okay. So I went home, started coming up with some ideas, came back to the golf course, gave him some completely ridiculous things for him to argue, and he was really good at it. So I'm pitting him against Tim, who I know to be very eloquent, witty, intelligent, and so. I'm not trying to blow your ego up.
The pressure mounts.
Yeah. So I thought it would be awesome to start this off and see how it goes. But I've got I have a couple ideas for different debates. So I'm calling the great disc golf debaters, Tim and Zach. So today, Tim and Zach were given the stand and deliver rule up for consideration and debate, a rule that surrounds no more run-ups off the tee pads. So here's how it's going to roll. Tim will be arguing against the stand and deliver rule. Tim has told me that he is for the stand and deliver rule, which is exactly why I told him to argue against it, because for my amusement. Zach will be arguing for the stand and deliver rule. He was not happy about that either. So here's how it's going to work. We're going to have 4 rounds, basically 1 round back and forth, lasting, about a minute each. Well, I'm going to start timing, but each person's going to have the same amount of time. And here's how the points are going to work. And Chris, you're with us, right?
I'm here.
All right, Chris and I are going to be scoring to the best of our ability, Tim and Zach. 1 point will be awarded for each argument or clever rebuttal. Okay?
All right, and just to clarify to everybody, the stand and deliver rule is you can take a run up off the tee, but you can't take a run up on any other shot.
Correct.
That's just to make sure everybody's following along at home.
Okay. So you get 1 point for each argument or clever rebuttal. You get 1 point awarded for a clever insult, but nothing obscene. You get...
To be clear here, I am for this, Tim's against this.
You will be... Yeah, Zach, you will be arguing for stand and deliver. So you will be arguing that people should not be able to do run-ups off the tee pad anymore.
Going down, old man.
Okay, moving on. 1 point will be deducted. Okay, are you ready for this? 1 point will be deducted for any mention of building or gifting a boat.
Oh!
I love it.
Okay, and 2 points will be added for any fitting Star Wars metaphor or any other topic already mentioned in this podcast.
Nice.
You got that, Chris?
I got it. I'm writing it down right now so I can take very careful score.
All right. So I will be moderating, and Chris and I will be scorekeeping.
Is somebody going to ring a bell when a point is scored or taken away?
We need to do that. I need to look into like having some kind of sound effect machine. Okay. Not as of right now. Wait a minute. How about that?
So we got a barking dog to indicate scores. That was a dog, right?
I don't think anybody's going to be able to hear that. We'll try and find... Hey, maybe I'll add a sound effect in post-production if I can work it out
Maybe
in
like
time.
a change chinging. There you go.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I like that. That's why we have you on the show, Josh. All right, so Tim, are you ready to go first with your argument?
I'm ready to go first.
All right, and time starts now.
All right, so I really think that you should be able to take a run up from any stance outside of the circle. Because if you throw your disc in the fairway, it should be an advantage, and they let you have a run up, and it gives you kind of a better shot. Whereas if you throw it off in the woods and you're stuck in there like an Ewok, that you're gonna have to kind of stand behind the tree, and it punishes you more because you can't take the run up. You can't take the run up there. So that gives you that one extra reason to actually keep it in the fairway, and that one little extra advantage of being able to have the run up in the fairway versus kind of being stuck like Wicket off in the trees.
All right, Zach.
Well, I think we all know that Greedo shot first, and he ultimately met his demise. And Tim, look, I played a lot of guys, a lot of big arms, and when somebody throws 350 feet off the tee on an 800-foot hole, and I can only throw 200, I got to find a way to increase that gap, and I'm a lot better standing still. And I think that when somebody can run up 15 yards and rip the disc as hard as they want, well, yeah, no kidding, you're gonna be putting in 2 shots because you're throwing full force. I think that it's going to give a little bit more fair play to the people that aren't necessarily as accurate. It's going to keep them, if they chuck one in the woods, it levels the playing field a lot better, and that way, I can feel better about myself.
Okay, Tim.
All right, so basically what you're saying is if you have the disc golf skills of Jabba the Hutt and you can't keep up with everybody else, you've got to drop the competition into a pit and handicap them to even the playing field. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, I had my grandfather, he built the Death Star, and, and he could just reach right out there as far as it wanted to go, and it could blow up a whole planet, just like having a monster drive on any hole. Well, you got to level the playing field a little bit. You got to blow that Death Star up, and that way the rebellion can kind of come back and win. And by the rebellion, of course, I'm talking about average disc golfers such as myself.
You represent the rebellion on the disc golf course because you're average. Tim.
So far, we've got a lot more points scored from Star Wars than anything else.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Tim, your
again,
rebuttal.
So you're saying that it's about evening the playing field. So instead of learning to use the Force and taking that training time that you need to with Yoda to get better at it, you want everybody else to kind of stop using the Force and just compete against the people who don't have it. So kind of like Darth Vader, you want to lord that Force over everybody else instead of kind of having everybody kind of leverage up their game and be able to use to use a run up. You just want to take that away from them.
If I could force choke you through this phone, no, I'm just kidding.
Does that one count?
Yeah, that would be an insult.
Oh, insult. Insult, not Star Wars. The Force choke with Star Wars, or is that a double?
I don't know. You calculate and I'll calculate. We'll match it up.
No, Tim, I understand your perspective there with the run up and working on proper form, but I also think that a lot of players institute that X step in the run up before they've fully developed a good, consistent form on a backhand. And I think that by not allowing players to run up, it's going to force them to really slow down their form, learn how their discs work and shot shape versus just running up and throwing as hard as they can, try to get it as far as they can. It's really going to enforce a more technical game. And I think it'll ultimately lead to more accurate shots and lower scores by slowing the game down.
Okay, awesome. So that was the first great disc golf debate, the stand and deliver rule. So let's tabulate and figure out who's got the most points here. Let's see. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. That's Star Wars. 11, 12, 13, 14. You're right. We have more Star Wars references than clever arguments. 2, 4, 6, 8. 2, 4,
All right, for
6.
me, the tiebreaker was the insult by Zach. I had Zach ahead by 1 just because of that insult. Did you follow the same score?
Well, I have Tim at 14 points, and I have Zach at 11 points. Now, here's the distinction, though. Zach had more arguments. Tim had more Star Wars references.
I agreed.
So we'll be sending this into the PDGA for their consideration on the stand and deliver rule. Thank you, guys.
And this will go on your permanent PDGA record in your profiles.
Hey, when's my round rating going to be out for this?
That is awesome.
I gotta say at least 1072. I gotta say.
That's awesome.
Sweet, we'll have a signature Star Destroyer out after this for this round.
All right, let's talk about what we're throwing. Let's start with Josh. We haven't heard from Josh in a little while. What are you throwing, Josh?
Well, my new favorite is the Ecostar Katana. In that tournament I played last week, there was a hole. It was to play 2 in one day, and it's like 150 foot down off from the tee to the basket, completely blind. Had a really big right to left crosswind. So this thing just kind of let it out at about 1 o'clock really hard, and it turned right and stayed in the air for like 15 seconds and tombstoned about 3 feet from the basket. And then I did it again almost identically the second time. So right now, until otherwise noted, this is my guy.
It's your go-to for consistency, huh?
Yes.
All right. Chris, what are we throwing?
I have in my hand another putter. This one is the Discraft Zone, in particular an ESP. If anyone's read any of my stuff, you probably know I have very small hands, so I'm very particular about the putters that I throw. The Zone is a low profile and very flat top, so that's the main reason it feels very comfortable in my hand. And because it's so comfortable, I have a lot of confidence, and this thing is extremely consistent. So the Zone is very, very overstable, and I can huck this thing somewhere around 250, 300 with no turn at all. And it's so extremely consistent that this is my utility disc.
Okay, awesome, Chris. So, Zach, what are you throwing?
I am going to be throwing the Innova Boss. I've had this in 2 plastics. I've had it in the Champion and the Blizzard. it is not recommended for beginners. So I want to really make sure that the listeners hear that it is not recommended for beginners. And by no means do I claim to be an advanced player. For those that have played with me know that I throw a forehand as hard as I possibly can, and it works well. Whereas my backhand, I throw like I am a very, very old man. That being said, very soft and very overstable. I use my Champion for long distance drives, and I've had my max drive with that of 425 feet. And I use the lightweight Blizzard in certain wind conditions to get a little bit more distance and a big overstable hyzer.
Right on. But not in Japan.
No, Japan. I don't. Everything's in the water in Japan. I don't even care.
Okay, awesome. Tim, what are you throwing?
Well, since it's been single digits here in Chicago, and when I hit the course, I look like the little brother from A Christmas Story.
I can't put my arms down.
Exactly. Makes it easy to throw. It's a nice long lever that way. But you've got, Zach always likes to say he's throwing dinner plates. Well, when it's 4 degrees outside, your discs turn into dinner plates. So I've switched over to some softer plastic for that colder weather. And right now for my mid, I'm throwing a Frost Claymore. Claymores are really nice, straight mid with just a little bit of a finish at the end. It's a real controllable disc. Fits real nice. It's a non-beaded mid-range, and beads and I don't get along all that well. So I like non-beaded discs. Nice flat top, but the Frost plastic is real soft. So in the summertime, it's real gummy. In the wintertime, it does harden up and gets a little bit more overstable when it hardens up, which is nice. So it's got a little bit more, can handle the winter wind a little bit better. It's not a real good wind disc, but it'll handle some of it pretty good. But when it hardens up, when it's 4 degrees outside, it kind of hardens up to the consistency of what a normal disc would be in normal weather. So it's nice. I don't have to worry about the super hard discs that hurt your hands. And because I got to say, for those of you out there that throw in that kind of weather, you know that every time you throw a disc when it's 4, it kind of hurts. So anything you do to help that helps. Right on.
Zach, you got a bunch of snow up there right now, don't you?
Yes, sir. I've got, I'd say 2.5 feet. I've spent the last 3 mornings coming home and getting to know my snowblower intimately.
That's just bad imagery right there.
You might be using it wrong if you're doing that.
Or maybe you're using it right.
All right, guys.
Just don't use it up.
All right, guys, I'm throwing an Axiom Virus. This has a speed 11, glide 5, turn negative 3.5, fade 1. And yeah, easy turnover disc on the Virus. But what I really like about this is a glide. There's something about a disc that has a glide, 4, 5 or above that just makes it have a pretty flight. Or is it just me? I just love watching that thing just hang in the air. But super easy to throw. I think it's really, really good for a new player because it is so understable. I think a newer player will be able to get it to go nice and straight. And it just has a real pretty flight. It's a real pretty disc. So the Axiom Virus. All right, it's time to give away some stuff. Let's do a book giveaway real quick. Since I have the review sitting right in front of me, I'm going to let Zach off the hook for doing the reviews. The book giveaway. So every episode, if you're not familiar, we always do a book giveaway and a disc giveaway until I run out of everything, and then I'll be very apologetic and say, hey, we have to stop this. I'm just out. But we're not out yet. So book giveaway. If you leave me a 5-star review on Amazon for Zen and the Art of Disc Golf, I choose your review at random, I will sign a book and send it to you. So today's 5-star review goes as follows. The title of it is A Book for the Serious Disc Golfer Who Wants to Master the Connection Between Mind and Body. And this is by Desert Diva on January 2nd, 2016. Desert Diva bought the paperback version. And I believe she bought it for her son. So she can either decide to keep the signed copy or she can give it to her son, whatever she wants. But she says, my son loves disc golf. He plays all kinds of sports and understands that your mental state certainly affects your playing. Ultimately, that's what sports are about. Sure, there's skill and luck involved, but ultimately the athlete who masters his or her mind prevails. I read about this book and ordered it for him as a birthday present. He almost teared up when he opened it and said he'd been wanting it forever. And how did I know? I knew because of the other good reviewers who post their reviews. Hope this is helpful to you. So, Desert Diva, if you email me at zendiscgolf@gmail.com with your address and information and let me know that you heard this review on the podcast, I'll be happy to send you a signed book for you or your son. So, disc giveaway. Today I'm giving away a Discmania PDX Disc Golf World Tour Series stamp that they sent me. This is a limited edition, okay, guys? I posted a picture on Twitter a little earlier about what this disc looks like. And this one's going out to someone who left the podcast a 5-star review. So in the future, if you would like to be entered to win a disc from the Zen Disc Golf podcast, leave us a 5-star review for the podcast. And this one comes from Hobo Goblins. 5 stars. So they said, happy first timer on December 15th. As a disc golfer living in a New England city, it's tough to get to the course without a car. The podcast is a great way for me to connect back to the game throughout the winter months and those times when I'm stuck in the city. I listen to the podcast as a way to stay up on tips and tricks as well as to get a few laughs. I really think these guys are doing a great thing promoting the game, which is something I feel is extremely important. I've received so much joy from the game of disc golf and feel this is one of the best ways to promote the game while off the course. So Hobo Goblins, if you are listening, email me zendiscgolf@gmail.com and I'm going to send you out this awesome limited edition Discmania PDX. It's a real cool disc. So does anybody have anything else for episode 18 as we come to a close?
Hey, Patrick, if you want to do another giveaway, got a first run of Therapy Disc Golf bumper stickers.
Okay.
I'll say the first 50 people that comment on my Facebook page and just leave Zen Disc Golf in the comments and their address, I'll send them a sticker.
Right on.
They can PM me their address, but just mention Zen Disc Golf on my Facebook page. The first 50 gets a sticker.
Right on. That sounds great. I'll go ahead and I'll put that in the notes as well, and we'll link up to your Facebook page, and we'll get that done. So you said it was therapydiscgolf.com, correct?
Yes,
Where they
and
can...
you should be able to get to my Facebook from there.
All right, awesome. So make sure you check out therapydiscgolf.com, zendiscgolf.com, mindbodydisc.com, dgputtheads.com. Man, you just got a lot of checking out to do. That's for sure. And a lot of Facebook adding and Twitter adding of all of us.
And they're all worth it.
Yeah. Subscribe to the podcast if you're not already. I don't know what you're doing. I really don't. I mean, we're giving away stuff left and right. We're giving away on the podcast. We give away a book, a podcast, a disc, a podcast. If you follow us on Facebook, we give away a disc a week. I mean, we just give away all kinds of stuff. So subscribe to all of that to get all the benefits, all right? Join in the fun. Most importantly, though, just throw.
I gotta argue for that?
Yep.
You know, it's one thing I can argue for anything. It's another thing when you start getting personal. If somebody called that rule, I'd start swinging.